My kid's a runner.
Did you guys hear that? All right.
Yep, recording in progress.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. If you guys keep talking, I just want to make sure I start recording in case I forget. But Devin, we'll go with you. You're the defensive specialist here. Okay, so what do you think about Saturday? You can call them our run fits, kind of what the secondary looked like, but just kind of start talking about Ohio State's run fit and how they're fitting the run this year compared to last year.
Total, I can't even say overhaul. It's a brand new defense, brand new philosophy. For the past couple of years, it's been, one gap fits. The Mike linebacker lives in the A gap. He's going to fill downhill. They're going to, plug the run hard no matter what, for better or worse. With Knowles, complete change in philosophy. D-line is much more squeeze, knock back, control the line of scrimmage. Especially last year, the D-line was get upfield, create penetration, and try and create TFLs, again, for better or for worse. So it's, again, a total brand new run fit up front. Of course, the big one is, you could call it spill and kill. They want to knock the ball out, let the linebackers run, let it run it down the perimeter.
Kyle and Ross, you guys have covered them forever. Like, is this the most complex you've seen them in a while, or?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, at least at the bare minimum, we're going back to Chris Ash. And even like, you think about the amount of stuff we saw, like just volume of stuff. I don't remember OSU showing this much, especially in the spring. Like, they didn't even blitz, and we saw more than we've seen going back, a decade. I mean, you got to go to Haycock days probably, where they're running this much difference in terms of back end coverages, what that does to the fit. And that's without them even playing with the fronts, without showing any blitz. We know that they're going to run a lot of cover zero. They're going to bring a bunch of people and pressures. And we didn't see any of that. And yet it was still more volume than anything I've seen. Like, I was joking with you guys in the chat before that, like, am I actually seeing what I think I'm seeing? Like, this isn't like a blown assignment that looks like 3 cloud. No, this is actually 3 cloud. Like it's wild to me. Like, that's the world we're living in. It's almost like we're being finally repaid after watching 3 years or more of just play more cover 3, right? Like, just the same thing over and over.
Right.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, just to echo Kyle, I didn't realize that we were that old, that we've been, following this since like, the good old days of Jim Tressel. But it's funny you brought up 3 cloud, because that's like the irony. They were so basic the last few years. When you say like they're a cover 3 team, like they literally ran one style of cover 3. It's like, whoa, 3 cloud, we're getting crazy here. We're gonna, for people, like, we're gonna have the corner as one of the 4 underneath defenders and rotate. And so, yeah, I don't know if they were being, if Knowles was being serious and saying that was super basic for them, then it's going to be a pretty complex defense. I mean, even Chris Ash was like a basic, quarters, zone match, play after play. And so this is the first I can think of where it's like, we're going to mix a bunch of coverages in. Like, I know the 4 of us talk some like, oh man, they're spot dropping in cover 3. How do we feel? But it's like, when you put it in context of like, well, they ran already like a dozen different coverages on Saturday. Like, you probably do have to kind of pick and choose your spots about like, well, we are going to man match and cover 4 a bunch of different ways. So kind of, I think the name of the game here is being able to mix in as many things as you can. So you got to make it so that your players can still execute it.
And right, and the vast amount of coverages was going to be the next thing that we kind of talked about. What do you guys think we're going to, like, I know they'll have a base. It may not be what they run consistently, but what do they think they're going to base out of this year? I mean, Ross, what did you see? I think you tweeted how many coverages they ran and what all they ran. What do you think they're going to base out of this year?
Yeah, and I know Kyle counted it up too in his article. I'll take Devin's word for it. I mean, I think he's probably onto it. I think it's going to be some mix of, cover 1, so man free, a variety of man match schemes, principally like cover 4 schemes where the corners are manned up on the outside receivers. And so then you're mixing, whether that's like a more aggressive like mag or mix, or like a more, pass first, like bracket. Either way, you're still manning up your corners on the outside, and then you're changing up inside. And then, I think we'll see a lot of cover 3 mixed in, especially with like fire zones and sim pressures and creepers. So, again, when you're bringing creepers, sim pressures, you're bringing 4, but the 4th rusher is coming from the back 7, and you're dropping a defensive, lineman out, or a zone blitz where you're bringing 5 and playing a 3 deep, 3 under, which again sort of explains probably some of the spot dropping too, because you want to be able to make those cover 3 zones interchangeable for guys that are dropping.
Yeah, I think the one question I've got is, every Ohio State defense looks pretty solid the first month of the season because they've just got so much more talent than everyone they play, and talent just wins. Guys win enough battles. It doesn't matter what they're being asked to do. Where they get in trouble is late October, November. Penn State's watched every second of them play, and Michigan State's watched every second of them play. And they know, and they come to those games with their tendencies ready. And what I'm curious about, because I think we've all watched a lot of Oklahoma State film in various forms over the last few months to try to understand what to expect. But what is the changeup going to be? Because I think your point about what is base is going to look different in September versus what it looks like in late October, November. And Devin, my question to you is, as you're a defensive play caller and you're thinking about those game plans, how do you structure it so you can say, all right, we were a quarters team in September. What can our changeup be that doesn't require completely overhauling it for a game in early November?
My thing is what maximizes carryover. So it's not just scheme you're implementing. You don't want to have to get to a situation where you have to blow up technique. And that's where you really get in trouble. The man match and cover 1, like we were talking about the corners playing press. Your corners are playing press man. You got them over the field in cover 1 or man match cover 4 in a lot of the variations. So you don't have to blow up technique. So that's the first thing you want to look at is, do we have to do whole new teaching, or can we do what like same as teaching? Hey, I know we've been running this coverage here. We're going to put in this variation, but it's the same as what you've been doing in this coverage. So you just got to know when we call this, you're doing this. That was just like this. That's the way I would look at it when you're as the season goes on and you're trying to find answers or ways to attack an offense. Do we have to teach anything new from a technique standpoint, or can we just go to what we've already have taught since the spring?
Yeah, what I'm interested in, and Justin and Devin, I think you guys picked up on this from Knowles' clinic, last week, where he's talking about like, how do you respond if a team's running zone read on you, and he's like, oh, I'm going to come in with a new call. And so to me, I think that's all great, right? But then it's like, you're putting in a lot of volume. They do have a lot of experience on defense, granted in a different system, but guys that have played. But are guys going to be blowing assignments, and B, it's a lot on Knowles. I mean, I'm going to pick the right play call at the right time. Where to Kyle's point, like, hey, Penn State's watched a lot of film, and they get paid well too, and they've got smart offensive coaches. So to me, it'll be interesting to see how that all comes together.
And I think the one big takeaway for me, at least in the spring game, and then listening to Knowles' clinic, was how he's going to defeat the RPO and how he had a lot of success with the 3-high look at Oklahoma State. Because as an offensive play caller, you want the pre-snap, you want the look to be exactly what you want it to be. You want them to be still. You don't want anybody to move, and you want to know who you're reading. You want to know who's going to fit the boundary, meaning safety or whoever. But with his style of D, you'll never know who that is. You'll never know who's going to be the alley fitter. It could be somebody different each week. And I think Ohio State has struggled with the RPO so much in the past. I think at least this past year, I thought. And I think that's one of the answers I'm pretty excited about, is that I think they'll be able to defeat the RPO a little bit better than they have in the past. And he
because they never tried before.
Right. I can think back to how many the slants away from the run game that just got pounded all last year. So I think that's one thing to look forward to, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I keep trying to avoid saying it out loud, but the more I keep thinking about it, is this is an NFL approach to defense. Even though Jim Knowles is a college guy, he's like, especially colleges that you don't think of as scheme heavy NFL factories, right? Like Duke and Okie State, and like before that, Cornell, Western Michigan. Like that's not where he came from. But what he's trying to do is have an NFL defense, which is we're not going to be the best. And, he's not going to write a clinic speech about cover 7, or he's not going to, come to a clinic and say like, this is my coverage that I'm the master of. He's going to have 5 or 6 things that he's good at. He's going to have 4 or 5 other things that they're okay enough at to get by. And that's what the NFL does, right? I'm going to try to show you enough so that you can't figure out the tendencies. And then I'm going to try everything I can to keep you from being able to figure out what I'm doing. And like, think about what a departure that is from, nope, we're going to play single high cover 3, be gapped up, and we're going to just be the best in the country at. Like, it's a complete 180 philosophically, which is welcome.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is, a lot of the media is focused on his jack position, what he called the Leo. But, back to Justin's point, like, I was actually blown away by how much 3 safety looks they showed in the spring game. Again, like, if that's basic.
First play.
I know. It's like, if that's, to me, I thought that was going to be the hardest thing for them to implement, and or maybe the thing that in the Big Ten he would shy away from it. But instead, it seems like it's going to be a active part of the scheme.
Which I wanted to kind of talk about next. When they get into like week 1, they'll see a lot of 12 personnel, I'm assuming, versus Notre Dame. Like, what is he got? Like, I know he likes to run the stack look. He talked about that in his clinic versus gap scheme and 12 personnel. Like, how is he going to defend 12 personnel teams this year? Because he's going to see a ton with a lot of the outside zone looks that, like Iowa, like Devin brought that point up today. Like, how is he going to line up and how is he going to play the 12 personnel teams?
Well, to me, I think we've talked about this a little bit, and again, watching on Saturday, the most important players on this team are those safeties. Like people have asked me, like, oh, should we watch it? And like, for years at Ohio State, the D end was the glamour spot, right? And like, do you have that stud D end? Like, it's as simple to me as if Ronnie Hickman's an All-American, Ohio State's got a great defense. And Ohio State's not going to have a great defense if Ronnie Hickman's not an All-American. You know what I mean? Like him, like whoever that, that boundary safety is, those 2 dudes, they're your answers for 12P, outside zone. Hey, come up and fill and make tackles on, between the hash and the number. It's those guys. That's the answer. That's it. Like, you can scheme it up all day, but those guys have to make tackles in space.
Yep.
Yeah, Devin, I'd be interested in your thoughts too, because, again, like to the Notre Dame point, to me, I sort of think of that as his, like Knowles talked about, like fake 12 personnel, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And, I think Notre Dame is a lot of that in terms of like, their one tight end is their best receiver. But then you do play like in Iowa and Wisconsin this year, which are, getting in 12 or even, even putting a fullback in, crazy things like that. So I don't know. What do you think what adjustment that'll force on his defense?
I go back to technique. And if you look at the defensive line, they don't see what's going on in the backfield, or hopefully they're not looking in the backfield, right? And it's everything they're doing is crushing the front down. Doesn't necessarily matter what's going on in the backfield. Crush the front down, knock the ball out, and let the guys behind you clean it up. So that carries over from week to week, whether it's Wisconsin or Notre Dame, for example. The easy solution, they've even talked about in the spring, is they're going to have to pull the nickel and put in a big body linebacker. I mean, it's just, mass. They're going to have to put it in at that spot. But from a coverage standpoint, what we already saw in the spring, they've got the coverages to change who your force players are. They got the coverages to give the offensive line different run fits and how they got to work to. And again, like I said, the defensive line technique, that's not going to change from week to week. Crush the front down, squeeze it down, knock the ball out.
Now, how does that work for like outside zone teams? If you're going to crush the front and they're aiming points to get to like D gap, like what's your answer to that if you're going to crush the front like he does?
So typically when you see guys that are willing to crush the front like that, they actually let the defensive line get reached. They just know it's one of the downsides, one of the weaknesses of crushing the front, as aggressive they are, playing those heavy techniques they are, you're going to get reached. Going back, you mentioned Haycock, we're going back to Haycock. He flat out said, you're allowed to get reached. Just get back upfield, get back in pursuit. Let the secondary or linebacker, whoever your force player is, set the edge and run it down. But again, what it does is it takes away the two-way go for the running back. There is no cutback anymore. It's going to keep pushing wider and wider. And again, if you're a spill team week in, week out, your secondary should be able to come down, set the edge, whether it's your corner linebacker or one of the safeties now with Knowles.
That reminds me a lot, like before last season, watching Tulsa's defense, because they ran a lot of this kind of stuff. They ran that really light box. I'm not even going to say the T word because it's going to, we're going to get a whole discussion about that front. But, like they had that modified front where they have on the front side, on one side, they've got a nose tackle right over the center. They've got a 3-tech that's between, playing a heavy 4. And then they've got this wide body end. And you can look at it and thinking about it as an offensive line coach, you're going, what do I want to do with that? Like it's almost like you're goading me into calling something that I don't want to call because you just don't see that front. And you're like, I feel like we should go attack that bubble, but that's not what we do. And I don't really know how we should do it. And I just wonder how much of that, like your favorite phrase, Devin, of junk the front, like how much are they just gonna like throw stuff at them and even play to play? And I think that's where you might see the jack position moving all over the place, because it's just gonna make offensive linemen have to think in a way that like you can't just be like, great, we're gonna mash you with outside zone play after play after play. Like I just wonder how much of that goes into it. And that's that one of those other things you guys talked about, which is he's trying to make a call to screw with that other play caller.
Right. Now, like with Sawyer as their jack, like, do you see him more of a traditional 5? Do you think he's going to move him around a ton? To me, it just looked like at least Saturday he struggled a bit, like foot speed. I don't know if I saw that, but he just looks like such a traditional 5. I don't know what they're going to do with him.
It's because they've got too many 5s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because and then even going beyond Sawyer, like the other, they've basically been like rotating like Sawyer and Tumaloau as like one group, and then like Harrison and Baptiste is the other group. And like Harrison and Baptiste are not even playing one of them as a strong and one as the jack. Like it's just like right and left still. And they're basically like, because they're so similar. I'm guessing it's like, why even have them try to change the alignment around? We'll just have them fill the weak or the strong responsibility. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. The jack will be interesting. I think they'll use it some, but I do think they just have such natural like defensive ends that.
Right. I mean, he didn't do any of this at Duke, or at least from what I saw. I watched a little bit of Duke his last year. They were a 4-2-5 team. Like they were like, you watch the film and like if you don't know what to look for, you're like, okay, they were a 4-2-5 quarters team. They were fine.
Right.
It is what it is.
Was he three high there, or did he not do that?
No, not really. I mean, apparently he did what he says is like he ran some of the Jack Leo stuff at Western Michigan because he had Jason Babin, who was the most athletic dude in the MAC.
Right. Which
great, good for you. Should be doing that kind of stuff when you've got a dude like that. But I mean, I didn't see any three high until the last like couple of years, going back into some of the Okie State film. Like his first year, they weren't doing much of this stuff. It seems like he had that freedom to kind of do whatever he wanted down there, and it was a little bit of, hey man, just see what works. Texas is trying some of this stuff. Iowa State's doing some weird stuff. You can do some weird stuff because why not? It's the Big 12, so straight up cover 4 doesn't cut it down there.
Right. And I listened to an interview with him. I think it was the Coaches Circle I can't remember what podcast it was, but he was saying that in the profession, they don't interview very often. It's just because of who where you get hired. But I said he and Gundy spent like 3 or 4 hours in the interview going over that and him kind of introducing the 3 high look. That's how it got started. But I thought that was pretty interesting as well. You guys want to talk any offense? I know Ross, you talked a little bit about them going under, but I didn't see too much different than what we've seen the past 3 years.
It's sad because we keep talking about defense, like, oh yeah, by the way, they still have the best offense in college football last year, and probably will again this year. But yeah, I mean, I agree that I think the amount of under center was interesting. We'll see if it was just an artifact of spring or if it's something they continue. I mean, to me, as I've talked about, like the one thing that I thought needed fixed by the end of last year is they were very predictable in terms of run, pass, tell, based on whether they were in shotgun or they were in pistol or under center, with, the latter being very run heavy. So, it seemed like they were doing a little bit more movement passing, drop back from under center. And, that'll be something that I'll be looking for in terms of whether they keep that going.
Yeah, I was not disappointed. I mean, it's hard to be disappointed with this offense, frankly. Like, honestly, it is. But the one thing I was looking for that we didn't see was any of the influence from Justin Fry coming over from UCLA.
Right.
I've watched some of what they did, and you can tell like right away, like if you have that awareness of like, where's the game going? Where has Dave gotten influence from in the past? And I don't just mean Chip Kelly, like the run game became so predictable in the sense of like, they're going to run outside or mid zone. They're going to run jet away from it as a decoy. And what UCLA was doing was a lot of like, no, we're going to run jet motion and then run a sweep into that. Like the jet guy is going to be a lead blocker essentially. And then we're going to pull two guys. And like, that's very much like an LA Rams type. Yeah, Cooper Kupp's a great receiver, but guess what? He's basically the second tight end in a lot of our run schemes. Like he's holding off the backside edge, or sometimes he's just, trying to pin some guy inside on a tight inside block there, trying to give that edge. And that's what I wonder if that, they should be living in 10 personnel. They shouldn't ever have to run 12 personnel on this team. Like, look, at least given like what you've recruited and who you got there, like if they come out in 12 personnel, it's almost like we're trying to throw you off because we've got so much talent, but you still have to find ways to run the ball effectively. The Rams can figure it out. This team sure as hell should be able to figure it out when you're playing Arkansas State in week 2, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I did think that like there were times last year that it got, it was like duo even disappeared. They did run like a lot of duo in the spring game. And so, I'm getting a kid entrance. I will say that I remain hopeful that we see some of the Kelly Fry, what they were doing with in terms like running zone to the halfback side. It's ironic because like Chip Kelly had a lot of these problems in the NFL where it was like very predictable by halfback alignment, and that literally killed his NFL career. And he seems to have fixed that in college. And so, Ohio State has some of those problems on like microcosm, especially without the quarterback run threat and, to sort of balance out what side a defense has to worry about. And so I agree with Kyle. I mean, I'd still remain hopeful that we see at least some of that influence from Fry and by extension Kelly.
And I was hoping the exact same. They ran last year. Chip Kelly ran a ton of down G, especially inside the 20, which is obviously a really good red zone concept. And I'm sure they're just not going to show up, but I'm really hoping that like his influence starts to make way, because we don't run any gap scheme. I don't know why. I love gap scheme to death, and I think it's a really good mix off a zone. But it's just they have to have a little bit different, not answers, but they've got to be a little more versatile in the run game, I'm hoping. But it's hard to complain when they're the number one offense in the country. But
yeah, and they've got the best player in college football,
right?
Like Jackson's the best player in college football. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, he is definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I take his point. Like, I think Dave's probably if you put him on the spot, he would say, there's only so much practice time.
Right.
Like my passing offense is complicated. I don't want to spend a ton of time like repping different gap schemes, etc. But I think there has to be some happy medium there.
I mean, to me, this is we don't want to show it until we're in the red zone against Notre Dame, because if there's one defense that they've really got to be worried about that can throw enough crap at them that like it's going to be, they're going to junk in, do all the stuff we just talked about with Knowles, but we actually think they can do it. It's Freeman's defense, right? So they don't want to show anything new to give them, the summer to work on that until they absolutely have to.
And then Devin, do you have like with Freeman's D, do you have like what's he do differently than, let's say, what Knowles is going to do? Like, is he running what Fickle has always run, or has he kind of changed up a little bit?
I'm sure he's got his own variation. Haven't really studied what he did at Notre Dame. No, I didn't really chance to study what he did at Notre Dame, but I know at Cincinnati, he was kind of a 3-4, 3-3. And what was kind of unique about it was almost a 4-layer defense. in the way they set the coverage up. You had the D line, the 3 down D linemen who had a lot of freedom to create up front, 2 tight backers who kind of fit off them. 2 tight backers to fit off them.
Hey guys, I gotta run, but I've got next time we can have a discussion of why tight ends are so important at Ohio State.
There we go. There we go.
You're awesome.
See, Bob. And then you had what I'll call them 2 kind of hybrid safety, outside linebacker type guys who kind of play in the traditional safety spot, and then 1 free safety behind them. And they play a lot of cover 1 with some banjo concepts with working out of the core of the offense. So it is pretty unique in what they created when they were at Cincinnati.
So how does that make it difficult for an Ohio State offense? Like, what does that do specifically, let's say, run, red zone, where the only nit you can pick with that offense?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you can't, trying to put my offense hat on, it's going to be harder to find those combos to second level, third level, because they're coming from depth. And, you want the front 5, basically, counting those 2 linebackers, like I talked about before, they're going to make a mess of it. And now you have 2 more safeties coming from depth. Theoretically, if you get the ball knocked out, which I like to say, to come clean it up. Plus, you still have 1 more free safety running the alley behind him. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe he's more, depending on what they have called, more of a flat foot alley runner than a traditional deep middle third, don't get beat deep free safety as well. So again, like I mentioned before, they got 4 layers of guys coming at you.
Yeah. Well, that's why, Justin, your point, down G sure sounds like a nice little mix up versus worrying about combo blocks and, in the B gap.
Right. Well, I've got 5 minutes left on this recording, or I have to upgrade, and I don't want to upgrade. I don't want to pay for the extra Zoom. So if you guys have anything else, I'll probably head off here. And I really appreciate you guys getting on.
No, it's been fun.
No, it's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's good to actually have real football to talk about.
Yes.
No kidding. No kidding.
That's for sure.
All right.
And
watch the Barty Clinic, Devin.
That's right. That's right. And no basketball analogies tonight.
I came close. There was one that I almost threw in there, but I held off.
I'm looking forward to them because you're going to be able to use them every week now. Pick it. This is Knowles' favorite coverage, the pick and roll defense.
So you're going to hedge the pick and roll this time. You're going to show. We're going to blitz the pick and roll. Like, there's a lot we can do here. It's going to be
this is material for months now.
All right, fellas. Well, I appreciate it.
All right, it's been fun. Talk to you guys.
Talk to y'all.
See you guys.
See you guys.
All right, Dev. I'll see you, dude.
All right, see you both.